Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Look, this instant asset tax write-off is inadequate. We've just heard the Minister say how great it's going to be for small business. But, Minister, it is not high enough. $20,000 is not high enough for small business. You cannot buy a vehicle. You can't do a whole lot of things. The previous instant asset tax write-off was $150,000, and they're bringing it down to 20 grand. What's that going to get businesses? Not a lot. Not a lot. And it wouldn't cost the Albanese Labor Government a lot of money to adopt our amendment and raise it to a higher amount than $20,000. And I'd say to the Minister, go and see your boss, go and see the Prime Minister, raise it a little bit higher. It's going to cost not a lot of money at all. It's actually very modest, very modest. But you cannot buy a vehicle for 20 grand. Now, a lot of companies need a vehicle, right? I know you mentioned a coffee machine, but come on, 20 grand, it's not going to get you much at all. The truth is that Labor are pretty well anti-business, particularly small business. Small and family business, they don't care about them. They don't. When it comes to tax, industrial relations, energy is leaving small and family businesses behind. That is the absolute reality. Small business employs almost half of Australia's private sector workforce and representing over 97% of all Australian businesses. The issue is, since the Albanese Labor Government came to power just 18 months ago, small businesses have all but been abandoned. In Labor's draft national platform is very much an afterthought in each budget. You know, what can we throw in there? What bone can we give them? Labor's national platform, 114 pages long, mentions small business just 5 times. Labor have consistently turned their back on this community. In total, Labor voted, including the member opposite, against tax relief for small and medium businesses 15 times in the last parliament, voted against it, denying tax relief to millions of small and family businesses around Australia. Now the current Treasurer Chalmers, said at the time that the small business tax cuts that the coalition government was putting in to help small and family businesses, they're not worth the money, and that Labor are proud to oppose these tax cuts. That's from the Treasurer. The reality is that the Treasurer of Australia was proud to oppose the tax cuts that would benefit hard-working small and family businesses. Why? Because their friends in the union movement, who are the real government of Australia, don't like small and family business because they can't unionise it. And even in this bill, we see a special deal for big super funds that the unions run that don't apply to small self-managed super funds and other retail, some of the other funds. So under this Prime Minister, Deputy Speaker, and this Treasurer, small and family businesses are suffocating. The Small Business Matters report shows 43% of small and family businesses are making zero profit, the worst rate since the last time Labor in government, back in 2012. About 75% of small business owners earn less than the average Australian wage, despite working longer hours. Now, when people run a small business, you want them to actually earn a wage, just like PAYG employees, just like we do here in the parliament. You want them to earn a wage, but you also want that small and family business to actually make a profit after all their expenses, after their rent, after their wages for their staff, after their superannuation, after they buy their goods, after their insurances. The list goes on and on and on and on, after their electricity that's going up under the Albanese government. You want them to make a profit so that profit can, 1, be reinvested and 2, provide a dividend. But on this side of the House, we will look after small and family businesses because many of us on this side have experience in the private sector. We haven't just gone from uni to working for unions and straight into parliament like many of those opposite have. The coalition values reward for effort. We thank small and family businesses for employing Australians. And while this bill has some measures that we can support, quite frankly, it doesn't make up for Labor's broken promises and lack of support and bad attitude to small and family businesses as a whole. This year we saw a huge tax blow that's going to see tradies and small businesses across Australia pay more. And I'm talking specifically about the instant asset tax write-off. The chief economist for Judo Bank, Mr Warren Hogan, said you will see some parts in certain industries really struggle under this government. The Albanese government has slammed the brakes on the amount small businesses can claim in relation to the instant tax write-off, down from, as I said before, $150,000. In fact, during COVID, it was unlimited. But before COVID, 150 grand it went up to. They're bringing it all the way down to 20,000, and the minister who just spoke comes into this place and makes out as though it's some sort of win for small businesses. No, it's not. It's not a win, right? $20,000 is not high enough. If I think about businesses in my own electorate, I was talking to Wayne Treloar from Ray White, Aspley and Brisbane Downs Group, who in the last financial year, when they could claim up to $150,000, bought 4 cars for their rental property business. Each car was $22,000 each. Under this minister, they won't be able to write that off. It'll take them years to depreciate. Photocopiers. You know what a photocopier costs in a business now? 25 grand. Inflation, particularly under this government, 25 grand for a decent photocopier. Can't write that off under Labor's instant asset tax write-off. But that's what that Ray White business bought in my electorate, and they were able to write it off under the Coalition's reforms. Designer Life is another local business. They're not operating now under the NESM scheme in my area of Somerset. They're in other areas. But when talking to them last year when I was Assistant Minister in this space, they bought cars as well, 30 to 32,000 on a car. Can't get a car for 20 grand, in case the minister hasn't worked that out. Computers in bulk order, where they had like 20 staff and everything, $74,000 on their computer system. Under the Coalition system, written off straight away. Premier Pet, another business in Narangba in my electorate that is a pet supplier to pet shops all around Australia. They put in commercial air conditioning for their staff and it was $25,000. Once again, they could write it off. And these guys come in here and get up and speak as though $20,000 is some sort of win for small and family business. It's not. And the point that frustrates me is if they adopted our amendment to raise it to $30,000, we're just talking $10,000 more, right? We're not asking it to go back to $150,000 where it was under the former Coalition government. We're asking it to go just up $10,000. It would not cost the Treasurer much at all, very, very little. But it would have a big impact during this cost of living crisis that small and family business and people are experiencing under Labor. That would make a difference. So for once, do you think the minister might be able to think, you know what, we could raise it just that $10,000. That's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. But it doesn't seem like she wants to listen from the previous speech when she was in this chamber just a minute ago. It does show how out of touch the Labor government is with what's going on in Australia right now, not just in Australian families that are doing it tough, but hard-working small and family businesses throughout the country. The Shadow Treasurer, Angus Taylor, he understands small business and family business, and he was shocked to see in last year's budget the extension of the instant asset tax write-off gone. Just gone. What? And then they come back in here a few months later, oh, we're giving them a win. No, you're not. This is a big deal for small and family businesses. And if this is the government's version of refining the tax system for small and family businesses, they should be deeply worried. Australians need a government that focuses on the economy first, not distractions like the Canberra Voice, where not one state voted for it in the country. The Coalition's amendment restores the instant asset tax write-off to levels introduced in the 2019 budget, and the amendments will mean that 26,500 businesses with aggregated turnover up to $50 million will be eligible for a higher instant tax write-off up to $30,000 that would benefit them. It also, as I said before, is a very, very modest cost. It'll drive productivity at a time where we're seeing historic collapses under the Albanese Labor Government, and it does stand in stark contrast to the extra $188 billion that the Labor Government is spending, which is putting extra pressure on inflation, which families know about through increased rent and housing costs. Deputy Speaker, I wanted to quickly touch on their tax changes as well, their superannuation tax changes. And this bill doesn't make up for Labor's broken promises. We know that before the last election, members opposite were elected to this House on the promise that there would be no changes to superannuation, broken within the first 18 months. And they somehow want the Australian public to believe, oh, we're legislating it now, but it doesn't kick in until the next election. Well, no, there'll be no changes to super. That's what you looked down the barrel of the camera and said, Prime Minister. He also said $275 reduction to lower electricity costs. Guess what? They've gone up 18.2%. And the minister here comes in and says, oh, we're going to give small business a little bit of a benefit, to upgrade some of their electrical costs, to put in lower lighting or solar or whatever. That's great, but that's not what you promised before the last election. You promised households a $275 reduction. There wouldn't be one member opposite that would get up in this place right now that would say, oh yeah, we're going to achieve that $275 reduction. For a little while they were saying, oh, by the next election, by the end of 2025 or whenever the next election is in May 25. None of them believed that. It's gone up 18%. Gas has gone up 28%. People are coming into my office, they're feeling the cost of living. They've been focused on the voice for 18 months, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're concentrating on cost of living. Meanwhile, everyone's rent's gone up, their mortgages have gone up, their electricity's gone up, their groceries are gone up, they're slashing instant asset tax right off the small businesses. This is what you get under a Labor government that doesn't care about small and family business and are focused on themselves. So it is disappointing, and it doesn't end there. They promise lower mortgages. Minister Conroy, when it comes to defence industry, we want to see more Australian manufacturing in defence industry. We just had the biggest show in Australia for Navy in Sydney last week, 3 days. He knew about it for a year, couldn't even be bothered to show up. This is the Defence Industry Minister, can't be bothered to show up to his own show and talk to people in relation to defence industry. Minister Huzik abandoned the space industry pretty well. You'd know about that, Deputy Speaker. But you were a former minister there, which did a lot. So the government's proposal has three flaws. It's a broken promise before the election where the Prime Minister Albanese explicitly ruled out changes to super. It is an index, which means young Australians like my children that are 21, 19 and 17, and many of us have children that age and represent people. The reality is that this will bite them. This will bite them because by the time that they retire at 67, and the way inflation is at the moment, mate, they're all going to be getting less in their super. They're going to be getting way less. So even the Treasurer, his own department, has shown that a 20-year-old today earning an average wage over their lifetime will pay higher taxes under this scheme. And finally, it is taxing unrealised capital gains as well, which means that retirees and superannuants will face tax bills on money they haven't even earned yet. They haven't even earned yet. People invest in super. They might have a self-managed super fund. The price of their property's gone up. They haven't sold it. Normally when you sell the asset, you pay tax on it. No, not under this government, under Albanese. Right? What they want to do under this Prime Minister is they want to make you pay tax on unrealised capital gains before you even sold it. I mean, it's a complete change to the way things are done. It would be like someone in this parliament or one of our constituents having a rental property and you own the rental property, and there's a 50% capital gains discount on your rental property, so when you sell it, you pay tax on half the profit. Well, under this one, they'll just say, oh no, your rental property's gone up during COVID, give us $100 grand now. An unrealised capital gain. And I'm surprised that any member on the Labor side can get up with a straight face and say that this is good for Australians in the middle of the worst cost of living crisis that we've seen in generations.